A dimly lit catacomb filled with the scent of old parchment and the flickering glow of incense and arcane candles. A grand wooden table sits at the room's centre, upon which rests an ancient tome, Libris Mortis. The master, a hooded figure with a voice like dry leaves rustling, sits across from the apprentice, a younger scholar eager yet wary. Master, this book. Libris Mortis, its pages are filled with horrors and revelations alike. It speaks of unlife in a way I have never encountered before. Why do the undead differ so greatly from one another? That, my apprentice, is the very heart of Undeath. The question this book most often ponders with Undeath is, what lies at the end of a life well lived? And the answer, eons of cold servitude. Your flesh, but a memory. Your every tortured thought focused on one thing, and one thing only. No two corpses rot alike, and no two souls resist death in the same manner. The darkness that fuels their unlife is shaped by its source. Twisted magics, infernal pacts, or sheer will against the inevitable. The dead are as diverse in their torment as the living in their aspirations. The apprentice turning the page, eyes widening at a depiction of a lich. Liches, self-made abominations, their souls severed and hidden away in relics, yet their minds remain sharp, their bodies animated by nothing but their own mastery of death. To choose such a fate. Why? Ambition, my student. Some refuse the silence of the grave, unwilling to let mortality curtail their pursuits. The lich is no mere accident of undeath. It is the deliberate casting away of the shackles of life. They transcend flesh, but at a cost, their very soul locked away, festering in its eternal prison. Flipping to another page, an intricate illustration of a vampire staring back. And these creatures, they hide among us, do they not? Clad in charm, yet their thirst is unrelenting. Vampires are predators draped in silk. The young ones are reckless, mere extensions of their sire's will. But the elders, they are patience incarnate. Each night another step in an endless game. They do not simply survive, they rule, puppeteering mortal societies as easily as a bard plucks the strings of a lyre. The apprentice grimacing as he reaches an entry depicting a decaying, shambling corpse. Zombies and skeletons. Though mindless, empty husks, what worth lies in such crude abominations? Worth. Their worth is in their simplicity. Zombies, tireless, unfeeling, incapable of hesitation. They serve without question, march without exhaustion. Skeletons too, their fleshless frames betraying no pain nor fear. A perfect soldier does not need will, only purpose. And what better purpose than servitude to the master who calls them forth? The apprentice, pausing before a grim etching of a dragon, its bones wreathed in unnatural energy. Even the mightiest of creatures succumb to death, yet these refuse to let even that claim them. The arrogance of dragons is boundless. They consider death beneath them, a fate for lesser beings. And so they cling to existence through profane rituals, sealing their spirits in gemstones. No longer bound by flesh, they are left only with their hatred, their hoarded grudges. To face such a creature is to face the fury of an eternity unlived. Turning the final pages, stopping at an image of a blackened knight, its eyes alight with cruel purpose. And the Death Knights, warriors who should have found rest, yet march onward in defiance of the grave. Not just warriors, fallen champions, cursed warlords, those whose rage or sorrow outweighed their mortality. Bound by failure, fueled by despair, they will both steal and sorcery in their unholy crusades. Their souls are fettered to their torment, and thus They are denied peace. The dead, my apprentice, are not freed from suffering. They are trapped within it, wielding it as their weapon. This Bookmaster, it is not merely a study of the undead, but a lesson in the futility of escape. Every creature within these pages has evaded death, yet none have found true freedom. The Master, nodding, standing slowly. Undeath is no escape, only a different kind of chain. To master such knowledge is to understand the cost of breaking death's grasp. Now tell me, apprentice, when your time comes, will you seek these secrets for yourself? Master, I do not yet know. Then let us continue our studies. In time, you will. Among scholars, debates rage about the multitude of forms, bodies, powers, and abilities to be found among the undead. Why are they not all alike? The differences from the source of unlife itself, the darkness that suffuses the necrotic tissue of the dead. Undeath manifests itself in various ways, and numerous theories exist concerning the nature of undeath. And though some hypotheses compete with or contradict one another, others reinforce or overlap with each other. Barring misfortune or their purposeful destruction, undead can expect to survive in good health for thousands of years, possibly even a great deal longer. With rare exceptions, undead have little or no metabolism to speak of. Undead are essentially animated by negative energy, though this animation is sometimes dependent upon the undead's ability to feed. Still, while biology plays little part in the existence of these creatures, the undead do have some similarities to living beings. Like ectothermic cold-blooded creatures, the unliving lack the ability to produce their own heat and must depend on their environment for warmth. This inability to produce heat is a defining undead characteristic, most remarked upon by scribes and those who encounter them, and often compared to the chill of the grave. To classify undead as cold-blooded creatures would be inaccurate, but they do take on the temperature of their surroundings. An undead's diet is unique, as some undead exist for centuries, without interaction with any living beings, while others seem to require, or at least crave with an unstoppable passion, the flesh, energy, or life force of the still living. Some undead glory in their ability to feed off the living. Others, especially the more intelligent, romanticize or even eroticize their need to feed on the living to maintain their strength. Unlike living creatures, which grow and mature throughout their life cycles, undead are usually changeless, frozen in the moment of their creation. Most are cursed to never adopt new philosophies, or change with the uncertainties and lessons of life, or ever find happiness. An undead that persists for century after century sometimes finds ways to grow in strength and knowledge. Its connection to the negative energy plane and Shadowfell, originally a mere trickle, can become an actual current over hundreds of years, and given enough time, a mighty stream. The ability to think is a quality the vast bulk of undead do not possess. Mindless undead merely respond to preset commands or stimuli, driven by nothing other than the energy that animates them. These undead have no outlook. They are robbed of thought. They are nearly mechanical in their actions, and often those actions are as easy to anticipate as the revolution of a water wheel. On the other hand, some mindless undead are agents of an intelligent master, whether undead or merely malign. Thus, even mindless undead may prove to be surprising foes, if their positions and responses to a given situation are properly coordinated and prepared. Only sentient undead have the luxury of possessing an outlook and a comprehensible psychological state. Those creatures fanatical enough to actually seek undeath strive to escape the bonds of mortality and thereby gain a term of existence far beyond their natural lifespans. Such mortals often presume that this gift of extended time comes without a price. They hope that by having no temporal limits on their lifespans, they will be able to accomplish all of their dreams and visions. The living spend their time living life and gathering experience, thereby shaping their personalities and adjusting to the world as it changes around them. In contrast, the undead mind sees the passage of time very differently. Undead exist, they do not live. Life means change, and while undead endure over time and learn new facts, they rarely change or appreciate new paradigms. Compassion is a choice. When someone is perceived as compassionate, that person has made a series of choices. Mindless undead are already out of the running when it comes to making choices. But what about sentient undead and compassion? Plainly, the choice to be compassionate is not something most intelligent undead consider. In many cases, Undeath is such a transformative experience that it imprints the new undead in its image. And in almost every case, that event is generated from an evil impulse or action. A secluded, candlelit study where the air is thick with the scent of incense and ancient parchment. The master, cloaked in heavy robes, stands before an open tome, its pages yellowed with age and heavy with forbidden knowledge. The apprentice sits nearby, quill in hand, prepared to inscribe every dark revelation that passes between them. The master, gesturing to the tome. Within these pages lies an immutable truth. The nature of the undead is not as simple as mere reanimation. It is power distilled into a perverse hierarchy, an unending chain of servitude. Tell me, apprentice, what do you know of undead progeny? The apprentice, flipping through the brittle pages. Many undead possess the ability to create spawn, yet, unlike mortals, they do not nurture them. Instead, they enslave. Some, like shadows, spawn offspring without intent, while others, such as vampires and wraiths, create their progeny deliberately, binding them in eternal servitude. The book describes an ever-growing web of dominance. But why? What purpose does such a hierarchy serve? That, my dear apprentice, is the very question that has troubled necromancers and scholars for centuries. Consider this. What is undeath, if not defiance of the natural order? Mortals create life through need, through love, through the desperate desire to persist beyond themselves. But the undead, they create only to command, to extend their own will beyond the limits of the self. In that sense, their creations are not children, they are echoes, extensions of their own essence. Master? And yet, there are those who turn loved ones into spawn. Vampires who, fearing loneliness, embrace their mortal companions in Undeath. Is that not an act of affection? No, apprentice, it is possession. A vampire may claim to love, but what it desires is ownership, permanence. Mortals wither, decay, vanish into the sands of time. Undeath denies this. And so, in its hunger for permanence, the vampire remakes its beloved in its own accursed image. It is not a gift, it is a theft. The apprentice pauses, glancing at a passage in the tome. And yet, the book speaks of necropolitans, those who willingly embrace undeath, not through the will of another, but through ritual. If there is submission, does that not suggest choice? Or are all spawn ultimately prisoners? A keen observation. Necropolitans, unlike the cursed or the enthralled, seek undeath as a path to freedom from mortality. But they are the exception. The vast majority of those turned do not choose their fate. They are claimed, puppets of a will greater than their own. And consider this. What happens when a master falls? When a vampire lord is slain, its thralls are freed from their bondage. Some crumble, others seek new chains. But the question remains, after decades or centuries of servitude, is there anything left of the self? Or is the only path forward to become the master in turn? to bind others, to seek control, to continue the cycle. An unbroken lineage of slavery, stretching back to the first who defied death. Precisely. Leans closer, voice a mere whisper. There are those who believe that at the apex of this great web sits the true architect of Undeath. Something ancient, something unseen, pulling at the strings of all who have ever been turned, ever been bound. A progenitor whose existence is mere speculation, but whose influence lingers in every shadow. What if the first undead was not a mistake, but a deliberate creation? What if this endless cycle of control is not merely incidental, but by design? Master, is that possible? That, my dear apprentice, is a lesson. It is not for us to know, only to wonder. Now, let us continue. There is still much to learn, and much yet to decide. When it comes to the society of the undead, these fall into 3 separate categories. As undead can be made of any living creature, they generally have no overall culture or single form of society. However, undead can still be defined in how they interact with other established societies around them. Additionally, while most undead prefer to exist on the fringes of real society, some undead are more cultured and refined in their sensibilities. Many undead have no society. They are animated through chance or align power. They lurk for years in or near a grave, and if they need to feed, they scrabble and claw their way to their desired food as best they can. They continue this pattern ceaselessly until they are finally destroyed. Mindless undead make up the bulk of these societyless undead, but any undead, no matter its intelligence, can fall into this basic predatory existence. The master and apprentice once again stand before the ancient tome, the flickering light of a single candle casting long shadows. The air feels heavy, as if the walls themselves carry the weight of countless secrets. The master, with the grave tone, flips through the dusty pages. There are few things in this world as detestable as the undead. Their very existence defies nature, mocking the cycle of life and death. A constant reminder of the punishments that may await us, should we fail the balance between the living and the dead. You speak of them as if they are more than just creatures, Master. There's something about them, something deeper, isn't there? Indeed, you've heard the stories, the rotting sinews, the decomposing flesh. Those are only the outward signs. The true horror, my young apprentice, is in what lies beneath. They are not merely dead. They are twisted, corrupted. Their very presence serves to warp the essence of life itself. Master, their power, to transform the fallen into new horrors. Yes, it is the ultimate punishment, to fall in battle, only to rise again as a mockery of what you once were. Imagine the horror of finding your soul trapped in that form. His voice drops lower. To fail, to be chosen by the darkness. It is a fate worse than death. But how do we fight such things? They seem unstoppable. An interesting thought, apprentice. Unstoppable? Perhaps, but not invulnerable. There are weaknesses, apprentice, secrets buried in the teachings of the temple. Religion, the study of the divine, has given us the means to understand their true nature. Religion, the gods have shown us how to combat them. Not the gods' apprentice, no, but their servants, the clerics. They are the ones who study the undead, who learn their patterns. And those who know the ways of turning can banish many of them from the battlefield, if only for a time. Master, the negative energy and positive energy, is there a way the two forces interact? Exactly. A simple truth, yet one many forget. Negative energy feeds them. It heals their wounds, gives them strength. But positive energy, light, life, it is poison to them. But remember, young one, There are those who are not so easily slain by light. Spectres, wraiths, they are but shadows of the living, rendered powerless by sunlight. Yet the vampire, even the brightest sun can only weaken it. Then, sunlight is a weapon. A weapon, yes, apprentice, but not the only one. For some of the undead are incorporeal, able to slip through walls, through time itself. It is these that are most dangerous. Their touch can drain your very essence, your life force. That is why distance is often your greatest ally. Then we must learn to fight with caution, master. Indeed. And never underestimate the value of knowledge, for some undead can infect their victims with diseases. A slow, creeping doom. One that even a cleric's healing hands may not be able to touch. And as for the incorporeal ones, those that flit between the planes, magic, my apprentice, is the only answer. Items that can resist their ethereal movements. They tip the scales in our favor. So it's not just strength or skill we need. We must be prepared with the right knowledge, the right tools, and the right faith. Precisely, apprentice. But remember this. The undead are not just enemies. They are reminders. Reminders of the fragility of life, the price of failure. Should you ever face them, do not just fight for survival. Fight to truly live. The master, his voice somber as he leans back in his chair, gazing into the flickering flame. Undead and undeath. They are not just an affliction of the body, apprentice. They are a sickness of the soul, a refusal to accept the natural order of life and death. To understand them is to understand the very nature of our existence, fragile, fleeting, yet precious. And what does that teach us, master? That we should fear death or accept it? It teaches us both. Fear, yes. For death is a shadow that can fall at any moment. But it also teaches us acceptance, for death is a part of life as much as birth is. To deny it, to cling to life beyond its natural end, that is the true horror of undeath. He glances at the apprentice, his tone softening. It is a lesson in balance. Life and death are two sides of the same coin. To live fully, you must accept the inevitability of death. And in doing so, you find meaning. Without that understanding, the undead are but a hollow, tragic mockery of what it means to be truly alive.